Today's guest is a third-generation financial advisor and president and CEO of Drucker Wealth, an independent wealth management firm based in New York City that serves clients nationwide. He and his growing team specialize in supporting high-income, mid-career professionals and their families with a particular focus on those navigating the fast-paced world of big tech. Recognized for his clear, candid financial guidance, he's been named one of Investment News' 40 Under 40, also a top 100 advisor by Investopedia, and a finalist for CEO of the Year by Think Advisor. His thought leadership has been featured in Financial Planning, Investment News, and Business Insider, and he currently serves on the Investopedia Advisor Council. Under his leadership, Drucker Wealth has evolved into an independent, registered investment advisor, launched a tax prep business exclusively for clients, and become a nationally respected partner for families in their late 30s and 40s who are managing high incomes alongside complex financial priorities. He's the author of H.E.N.R.Y Strategies Unlocked: How to Build a Plan That Works as Hard as You Do, a playbook for professionals who are earning more than ever but still feel uncertain about how to make their money work for them. In this follow-up to his first book, How to Avoid H.E.N.R.Y Syndrome, he offers readers a clear roadmap to move from overwhelm to ownership and build a strategy that supports long-term financial clarity. Please join me in welcoming Gideon Drucker. Gideon, welcome, and let's just dive right in. I want to understand, for folks who are just hearing about you and this book for the first time, who is this book for, and what's the situation that makes them think, I need a better plan than the one I have right now?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me, and nice to be able to chat about the book. So this book, the second book, and I can explain a little bit of the differences in the first. After the first book, I said I was never writing another one. And, a mere 5 years later, and I'm saying that again now about a third book. So, don't trust me on that. But this book is really meant for the type of clients that we work with every day. High income earning families, usually in their 30s and 40s. They have a lot of financial goals, priorities. They're super busy. They usually have kids under college age, and they have a lot going on, and they're not thinking about this day in and day out. And we like to talk about this idea of people that make a dangerous amount of money. I think that more than anything is really who the book is for. And when I say dangerous amount of money, it's people that are making enough money that they're totally comfortable day to day, right? They're not worried about, taking their next vacation, going to a show, taking their family out for dinner, sending up their kids for tennis lessons, dance lessons, what have you. All of that is totally comfortable. They're not thinking twice about those things in the moment. But they're not making so much money, and they're not making 5 million, 10 million a year where they can say, yeah, I'm going to be good no matter what. I'm going to be able to retire like just by accident. I'm going to be saving enough money to support my future needs. And I think that dichotomy of being totally comfortable in the moment, but still needing to plan for the future, right? And not feeling as great about your future as maybe your income might tell you that you should be. That's really who this book is geared towards. And I think the people that the book and the concept resonates, it's really a self-qualifying thing. We have clients that are maybe in their late 40s and 50s, really, not only high incomes, but high net worth, but they reach out saying, you know what, that H.E.N.R.Y idea, high earner, not rich yet, that feels like me. And somebody else might look at them and say, oh, you're in great shape, but they feel like they can be doing more. They should be doing more. They're not putting as much intention or purpose to their planning. And that really, so the people reaching out that it describes, I feel a little bit further behind where I should be, what my income tells me I should be. That's really who the book is for. They have that sense of misdirection.
High earner, not rich yet, H.E.N.R.Y. So that's folks that are feeling that like comfortable for today, like not thinking twice. Like you're describing my family right now. My kids are in the after school activities. They're thinking about signing up for one more. We're eating out, but what happens in 20 years? Like, how do we make sure we're set up?
Still need a plan for the future. Exactly.
Still need a plan. Now, you wrote a first book, never intended to write a second book. So what was the problem you needed to address in book 2 that wasn't fully resolved in book 1?
So I think who we worked with as a firm just evolved naturally. I don't think it's a radical departure. That first book was, and even the cover of the book emphasizes more for maybe people in their 20s. I think there's something about spending a lot on brunch in there. And the second book, the cover is, family of 4. It's people that are a little bit further along, both in their life trajectory. Like the book is really geared towards late 30s. I would say mid 40s is really, who a lot of our clients are at this point. And they're a little bit further along financially as well. So the first book, was helpful, but I think it was a little bit more of a entry point. It was a little bit more basic intentionally. And quite frankly, I was earlier in my career, right? So my breadth of experience of working with clients day to day was, it was let's say not as high as it is today. So this new book is just a little bit more in depth. I definitely think it's a little bit more, I don't want to say complex because it's not complex, but it's a little bit more getting into the details, getting into the weeds of different financial strategies. And I think it's a lot more client stories and, real client situations that we've guided them through, or just conversations that happen speaking with clients. First book, I don't know that I had enough of those stories, enough of that experience where it's as powerful to explain that. So it's the next evolution of what we're doing.
Well, what's also interesting is because there has been a gap of a few years between book one and book two, your clients have aged. So if someone was on the cusp of the older side of that first book and they were 30, and now a few years gone by, they're now more squarely in this next place. They may have had a job promotion.
Yeah, they usually are.
There could be a person who's led that progression from book one to book two, and there are people who are behind them who can start with book one if that's the beginning stages of their career. But this is where they might need to go to. And I know you were just teasing that you may not do book three, but you may, I could see how as your understanding changes, but you're also your clients will evolve. You may have other books. But so for this book in particular, what's that central idea or framework that you want readers to understand? And what is the moment that something clicks and they're like, oh, I get it now. That's the way I need to think differently about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to cheat. I have two, but the first, the biggest takeaway and really what the first part of the book is about is that finance is a lot more personal than it is finance. I think sometimes people think about investing or really financial advising, having a financial plan as, well, I have an investment portfolio, right? And the point of the book and most of the conversations we have with clients, the most important ones that change their lives, quite frankly, is about their goals, their priorities, right? How they think about their kids, private school tuition versus buying that vacation home versus going from a 2-income to a 1-income household, or one spouse deciding, we need to make a little bit more money because we're really committed to accomplishing these 3 things we've been speaking about. And I realize, the income is the thing that need to change. Or, hey, we really need to cut back on our current lifestyle because we have 4 education, private school educations coming up. We want to buy a vacation home. We want to spend more time with family. Those conversations are really important. And I think sometimes people get to, and this is a whole separate conversation, but I think it's large part a failing of, financial planning and financial advisors going back 2 decades where they think the investments, the conversation revolves around the investments. Investments are 1/8, maybe of what we speak about, what financial planning is all about. And instead of trying to optimize that last, 1% of your 401k, spending more time on your savings, your spending habits, your goals, your priorities is going to move the needle a lot more. So, and those are really the conversations we're having day in and day out. We, of course, speak about investing, retirement planning, tax loss harvesting, right? Everything we're doing on the investment and tax side, but only after we've really unpacked where they're trying to go, their financial destinations. And there's a reason the first, quote, third of the book, at least, is about that before we even touch on tax or investment strategy, which we do get into, but later.
That feels a little different than what people probably expect a book like this to be about, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, it bears out in the meetings that we're having. The investment conversations are typically shorter meetings, right? Where, hey, we can make these improvements, or hey, here's how we're thinking about this. But it's a little bit more black and white, right? If you know what you want to do, and if you understand why we're doing what we're doing, it doesn't change your lifestyle. But conversations around how much you're spending, or that you have these 5 goals, and we need to help you understand what's priority 1, what's priority 5 versus maybe what's not that important. That actually is something you need to think about afterwards, something we need to come back to time and again, make sure you're on track year over year. And that's where we tend to lead our clients in conversation to better outcomes, I think. And that's what the book is attempting to do as well. So definitely trying to reframe. And the second, I said there were 2, is just to get started. Just start having these conversations. It's a financial planning book. Yes, it's meant to, inspire people to action, whether that's with our firm on their own, I really consider if anybody is being more intentional and proactive, thinking about money, thinking about, hey, where are we going to be in 5 years, in 10 years? That first step is typically harder than everything that comes out of it, right? Who wants to spend time thinking about how much are we spending this year? What's our total savings rate? What's our housing rate, right? What percentage of our income are we spending on housing? Even thinking about that stresses people out, understandably. So having an objective outside person of kind of guiding you through and at least making sure you're having those conversations, starting that is a lot harder than everything that comes after, in my experience.
It's really hard when your income is variable, or if both parties, if it's two parents or something like are variable, to know how to even calculate for the future. Like how do you address that? I know you mentioned rising entrepreneurs is one of your subsets, and I also know even people working with a W-2 bonuses come into play, or they might get paid a different kind of compensation rate based on sales or something like that. So how do you help
Yeah.
them
So,
think about
and
that?
just to correct, we actually mostly work with W-2. Where really
Mhm.
don't work. Sometimes people might have an additional consulting 1099, right, that they do on the side of their W-2 income, but we mostly don't work with business owners because I do think that's a different type of planning. But to your point, we do work with a lot of clients that have variable income. Right? Their bonus might be 100% of their salary. Both numbers are great, but one time a year they get the equivalent of everything else. And it's about building out a saving strategy. Sometimes we're setting up an approach where we say, hey, we're going to set up this amount to be saved into these different buckets, different investment, retirement vehicles each month, and we're going to let the bonus replenish the cash reserves that are going down each month as we're adding to the investments. Other times we're building a plan that's more, hey, we're trying to break even, or be in the green by $1,000 a month just based on your salary, and we're going to use the bonus to hit our target 25% savings rate, because it's a little bit cleaner if your bonus is that high to use that as our full saving capacity. So there are tools, there are ways I can get more granular of how we break out spending and
Mhm.
saving, but it's knowing the numbers, having a plan, and having a baseline. And then yes, if the income is 20% higher, cool, we have 20% more income to work with. I always think take some of that and go enjoy. Right? What are we doing? What are we doing here if we're not trying to enjoy some of our income? So like, we're not saying, yeah, no, we need to save every dollar of that extra bonus. Go do something fun, go do something meaningful, right? That you really get value out of just from a lifestyle standpoint. And then we're going to focus on saving, investing the rest of that for your future self to benefit.
So if there was one thing a reader could do within 30 days of this reading this book, what would that action be to help them start to move forward?
Yeah, it would be really writing down financial goals and priorities, right? And I say both, and I think sometimes too many advisors stop at goals, right? A goal might, financial goal might be, I want to retire by 55. I want to send my two kids to private school. I want to buy a vacation home, and I'd like to, do a renovation, on my primary home. Well, that's all great, and those are goals, but what's most important, right? That's where the prioritizing comes in, right? Like, what is, of those five things I just mentioned, what is the thing that you're not sacrificing no matter what? Like, that is, hey, I might not be able to do all of this, but I'm definitely sending my kids to private university if that's where they want to go. And just writing those out and really thinking about what's number one, what's number two, just to get you thinking. And then of course the second part is, all right, well, how do we build a plan to actually make that happen? But I find that becomes a much easier conversation, and you become a lot more motivated to build a financial plan when you know what you're trying to get to, right? What are the driving factors, the outcomes? So starting by writing out your goals at a high level, and then coming back a week or two later and saying, all right, these are the goals. What's most important and what's least, and taking it from there.
I can see that. Like once you can envision where this is all going, then the nitty-gritty details that you have to think about makes more sense, feels more motivating because there's an outcome that you've decided is a
Exactly.
priority. And so I think we put this under the rug a little bit, like money matters, particularly if we're doing well. If the money is just in the bank when we need it and we're not really thinking a lot
Right.
about
And
it.
every year your 401k, you're contributing, your bank accounts seem to
Yeah.
go up. It can be very easy to just be like, all right, well, I don't really need to look at it all. I seem to be good. My net worth goes up each year. I'm sure I'm going to be fine. And, we're trying to take
Right.
that first stab of, well, what does fine mean to you? Right. We have clients, most of our clients make between 300,000, up to 1.5, probably on the high end, a few higher than that, but and I know that's a wide range. But, when you're making that kind of income, uh, you know, you might just expect, oh, well, come on. Anybody making that kind of income is going to be totally fine financially. And we've seen it where we're building out these plans with clients at the higher end of that, where things are still breaking a little bit. We need to prioritize, we need to think, because a lot of times lifestyle just evolves, right? Lifestyle creep is a real thing. All of a sudden you wake up, wow, we spend that much every single month. And, you don't consider anything luxurious, right? It doesn't feel like you're stretching yourself. It just kind of happened organically. You have a bunch of kids. A lot of our clients live in tri-state area, California, right? Really expensive, Miami, expensive cities and locales. It creeps up in a hurry if you're not thinking about it.
When you were starting to work on book 2 and you were getting clear about who the book was for, did it snap into place right away, or did you have to kind of keep refining the message to match a particular audience? Was there things you decided to leave out because, well, book 1 kind of addresses that, or a future book 3 might address that? Like, how did you cull down to, it feels like a very specific, you just described, like there's a range of income, there's an age range, you feel very clear on who this is for. But was that hard to get to, because it feels like a lot of people could use this book, but there's a particular audience you had in mind?
Yeah. So I will say I really didn't think about the first book at all in writing the second. Like, if somebody said, "Hey, I want to get to know you," I would tell them, read the second book. It's it's more recent. It's the firm has evolved. Not just we've gotten a little bit better, but we are we're doing a lot more as a firm. We have what we're trying to get to is different. So I just the first book is helpful for people of a certain age. I'm not trying to diss my first book, but I wrote the second book as if you've never heard of, you've never spoke about financial planning, with a professional, or you just never read my book, don't know anything about us, and going from there. So, that's the first part. But we are very, I kept it a similar way we think about who we work with. We are very intentional about who we work with, high income earners in their 30s and 40s with specific incomes, financial goals, and priorities, because we have conversations with these folks every single day. Like, when we talk about private school, when we talk about funding education or buying a vacation home or traveling, like, it's the same type of conversation, and we get to hear in their own words what people are really driven by. And I think you get to do a lot better work, quite frankly, when you have those conversations every day, rather than, I work with a 23-year-old, at 9 a.m. that has student loans, is making their first income. And then my 12 o'clock is a 75-year-old with required minimum distributions, focused on legacy planning and supporting their grandkids, right? Both are important. I'm not saying that, but you can't be all things to all people. And you end up not being as good at either if you try to do it all. So we're very intentional with who we work with. And that's really how I thought about the book. I think there's a lot of the conversations around priorities, goals can apply to everyone. And that's great. And obviously I really do think the book can help everyone. But yes, I'm trying to be intentional of, I know who we are best, where I have the most experience, who I've been helping for years. And so the book is geared towards those people, rather trying to like smooth out the edges and make it everybody, 0 to 100 should read this book at all sorts of incomes and life stages. I'd rather help the people that I know, the book is intentioned for.
I was thinking about financial moments that we don't know are concerning until you work with a financial planner. Like, if you get stock through a company and you're being vested into it, there's definitely some decisions to make. But I think most of us are kind of like, oh, cool, thanks, I'll take that stock, right, and not really understanding like that there's taxable implications and all that. So what are moments like that or others where people like should, this if you are still not convinced that you need this, like, here's a scenario where you really should involve someone who knows what they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think equity, RSUs, restricted stock units, that a lot of our clients get, because a lot of publicly traded companies where most of our clients work, in tech and media, offer RSUs. And I think you kind of hit right on it. Some people think about the RSUs they get and they vest, right? And now they have stock in their account like it's a gift, right? Like, yeah, oh my God, this is great, I have these RSUs. And what we like explaining to clients, it's compensation. It's compensation like anything else. You earn this money, first of all, and it's compensation that you need to figure out what to do with that best supports your lifestyle and your financial plan, right? It's not because it comes in stock form. Sometimes people think, well, I don't really think about it. It just goes in the separate account. I build up all this stock on the side, and that's kind of like outside of my cash flow, my purview. And the way we try to help clients think about it, consider RSUs like a cash bonus, because that's how it's taxed. The moment it vests, you're paying tax at ordinary income, just like you do on your cash bonus, or on your salary. So imagine you're getting this cash bonus of $50,000. Would you go out and buy $50,000 worth of your company stock? Probably not, right? You diversified. You might use it to beef up your after-tax 401k contributions, to do a backdoor Roth, to put in a pool, whatever the thing is. But you would think about that cash that has already been taxed, so it doesn't matter what you do with it after from a tax standpoint. And that is typically confusing for people. They think, well, I need to hold on to my stock for tax purposes. Once you receive it, you're responsible for the tax. What you do after then becomes an investment conversation. So that's a good example, because a lot of our clients do have a lot of their income come in as RSUs. And if we're ignoring that, if we're separating that out, it's not really a fair approximation of your cash flow. And then two, especially with our clients that are a little bit older, late 40s, early 50s, they might come to us with millions of dollars in their company stock because they've been working there for a decade, they're highly compensated, and they just, never knew what to do with it. And what I hear the most is, yeah, I know I shouldn't have so much in my company stock, but if I sold, oh my God, the taxes would be crazy. And then it's just like that paralysis, they're stuck and they don't know what to do. And so that's one where, yeah, we absolutely help them diversify out. Doesn't mean selling everything, right? It doesn't mean we need to, zero out your company stock. We never do that. But it's having an intentional program and using some tax strategies, tax loss harvesting, custom indexing around concentrated positions that allow you to be strategic with the equity, but not have 40 or 50% of your net worth in one company, which, by the way, might not be the worst thing in your 20s and early 30s, right? When your total net worth is lower and you can take more risk. As you start turning the corner, we want to take some of that equity that you've done well with and building out more of a plan. So you started on that one, but that's a really good example because so many people have it. And I think sometimes these companies make it as confusing, complicated to understand how it fits in the first place.
I mean, it was one of the things I got from thinking about your book and knowing you and learning more about what you do is that we can't just, hide under the covers when these moments happen that are a little above our pay grade. Like, I think that's what happens. It's like, oh yeah, yay, stock. Like, and that how we approach this might be different depending on, like you said, stage of life and all of that. Is there another example like that, or one of these, like, when this happens, you should definitely pay attention. This is a moment where you have to make some decisions.
Yeah, so I almost have a one-word answer here: taxes. Anything related to tax planning, filing, quarterly estimates, and just having an approach. So we've recently, launched a tax business, a tax division for our ongoing wealth management clients. We have two CPAs, in-house, Teresa and Mary Beth, and we're doing tax filing for a lot of our clients, and we'll continue to. And this is a new thing over the last year or so. And the reason we started that, it was the number one thing our clients had been asked. Really, the only thing I can think of where, like, consistently clients like, I love you guys, but it'd be really cool if you also could file my taxes. And, I heard that, and this has been like a 2-3 year odyssey of figuring that out. How are we going to get that done? But I think having taxes, financial planning, and investments integrated under one roof takes so much pressure off of, what families are responsible for throughout the year. And, we work best with delegators, right? And I always say delegators by either nature or necessity, right? By nature means this isn't my thing. I'm in marketing. I'm in advertising. I'm not the finance person. I want a trusted professional because it is not worth my time, my energy, and I don't get any enjoyment out of looking at my own finances. I want to be doing anything else. So here, right? Take care of it. And then we get people that maybe that's not exactly how they feel, but they get to a point where they're like, I'm working 60 hours a week. I take care of my kids in the other time. Like a million things going on. I've enjoyed doing it, but still, I don't have time here. And that's who we work best with. And that's kind of how I'm wired in my own life. I have way too much going on. We have, I said, a tax team in-house. I look at tax returns all week. I don't do my own taxes because it's not the best use of my skill set, of my energy, right? If I can pay somebody that's all they do, and I bring that, it's not an exact answer to your question, but that's really where I think the value comes in. And when clients realize, oh yeah, I don't need to be doing all this. It's not looking at an individual investment account. It's saying, oh, I can hire you to handle my taxes, my investments, my estate planning, make sure I have an RSU strategy that works, and I can be super hands-off. And really, for our clients, their time is more valuable than the fees they're paying us. Yes, we want to provide value financially, but if we can save you time, energy, and attention, right, the other three sources of capital we have, that's really important. And I think a lot of our clients and people that we connect with, it just clicks at a certain point of, what am I doing? I'm making 500,000 and I'm looking at a spreadsheet and I'm handling this all by myself at 11 o'clock at night when my spouse goes to sleep and my kids and that's really, I think, the turning point for a lot of people.
The fact that you have all this together in one firm under one roof is really amazing, because I think finding a financial planner and an accountant that can speak to you and understand the strategies and how they all interplay together can sometimes be really challenging.
Yeah.
I have
we've experienced it.
Yeah, I have a client who is the kind of CPA you want to know, and I'll make the introduction. She works with your clients, but she then always has to figure out like who is the financial planner she wants her clients to talk to because they don't all understand what she's doing, and it's just like it could be really tricky. So
Yeah,
the fact that you have like vetted a team, you're all on the same page, you're gonna get advice that will not be contradictory, will give
right,
you the right
exactly.
choices. I think that it's saving a ton of energy, but it's also, I think, going to create a much better outcome. And
Absolutely.
it's great. So people should know that they're coming into the family and they're going to be introduced to all the cousins,
Right.
everybody they need to meet. You've got them
Exactly.
all here.
Yeah,
So
and your experience with your friend at CPA, we have it on a, I spent a lot of years. Hey, we did this backdoor Roth and the CPA. Oh, I didn't see that. Or actually, what is honestly, and I was shocked by like, oh, what is that? What did you do? And again, they're a bad financial advisor. They're bad. This isn't a call out to the. But when you're dealing with CPAs that you have no connection to, other than you have a joint client, you didn't that it
right.
makes it difficult. And I'm sure there are CPAs with stories about financial advisors on the
Yep.
other side. The point is a tax strategy, a tax plan should really be integrated with tax filing, right? Like that's part of the same conversation. And it should be, and it's a lot easier when it's under one roof.
That's awesome. I want to just get back to the book writing process for a minute because I
Yeah.
think the fact that you decided to go forward with a second book, the benefit, of course, is that you have the experience of having written and released a first book, and there are lessons learned the first time around. You don't really always know what's up, what's ahead of the corner. Turn the corner, you're like, oh, that has to happen.
Yeah.
So, what surprised you about the second time compared to the first? Did you any lessons that you're able to apply forward? Benefits, second time around, did things a little bit differently?
Yeah. So first off, I like writing. So like that's a start. And not everybody that writes a book does. I do think that makes it harder. But I write a lot of blogs and newsletters. So I'm always writing. I enjoy it. And I like, when we have a client meeting where I'm like, that was something happened there, right? That was interesting. That's relatable. Most people like they talk about money maybe once in their life with somebody. And we get so, I want to be able to share those stories. So that made it easier. The book writing process was actually probably harder because it took a lot longer because I have a lot more going on. I got married a few months ago, so I was in a relationship the entire time. I was single the first time I wrote the book. The business has expanded. I've become the firm CEO. We have a lot more advice. So there's a lot going on. So a harder part of the book was, I wrote a lot of it and then I came back, with probably too much of a gap and had to edit and make changes. And I'm a perfectionist and I could, if it weren't for you and my publisher and Bridget on my team who helps with everything, then I would probably be still writing the book and it'd be like 800 pages, and just things that don't need to be in there. Like I would literally never stop writing. So that part, is hard for me. As far as what was easier is knowing that you are going to get to the end of the book, right? Like it's a really cool thing to have a book in hand, it's published, and so knowing that that's the outcome and you're actually going to do it, like you will have a book in your hand at one point or another, I do think makes it a little bit easier as compared to the first time where you're writing and you're like, is this going to be a pamphlet? Is this going to be a book? Is anyone ever going to see this or read this? So that was really helpful. And letting people, putting yourself on a deadline and letting people know, like, hey, I'm writing a second book. I think I posted on LinkedIn like a year ago when I was like, the book was nowhere close, but I'm like, all right, well, now people are going to know and people are going to ask about it. And I'm going to put myself on the clock a little bit. I think that helped as well. But I would say you asked like what made the book easier. I would say writing the book actually was really helpful in becoming a better advisor and better communicator of these ideas with clients. I found myself when I was explaining a concept about investing or real estate or anything that I'd said 100 times, after spending so much time curating that idea in the book, right? Trying to be concise, trying to remove fluff for things that didn't matter. I found I was just much more lasered in on being able to hit at what mattered, ignored what didn't, because I might have just spent 4 hours editing the chapter on why rental properties aren't as advantageous as they're made out to be. And now I'm having this conversation and it's coming to me. So I really think writing the book actually helped me synthesize a lot of my ideas and made it a lot better of a communicator. And that I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't doing it for that reason, but that's absolutely borne out over the last 6 months.
Gideon, I love that you brought that up because I think it is a surprising benefit that happens for a lot of authors who are writing the kind of books you're talking about, where there's a concrete lesson to be shared. There's clients that you're currently working with. It makes you really aware of what you know. It
Absolutely.
also I found that I had to look up the assumptions I had about like where certain quotes came from or
Yeah,
some
statistics that you have in the back of
statistics.
your head forever, and you're like,
Yeah,
all right, let me
understandings
dive a
of,
little bit deeper into this.
yeah,
Absolutely.
you like find the origin of something. Like you just become even more knowledgeable about that topic in a really clear way. Like you feel the confidence. So when you're meeting with a client, that comes across. You're like you said, you've clearly defined the what matters and what doesn't. Like get rid of the fluff,
Yeah.
helping clients out. So I think like you said, you've stepped up even in your knowledge base, but at the same time, you've created a resource that gives everyone else access. I'd love to hear what the early feedback was from readers. You've been collecting advanced reviews before the book was published. Now the book's been published. You're still collecting those reviews. Like, do any of those reviews sort of stand out to you, or just a general overall themes of that early feedback?
Yeah, a few early client reviews that were just not that I wasn't expecting, but they were just really genuine. Like, wow, this book is awesome. It sounds like you. It's exactly like they felt more comfortable in working with us. In that, somebody one even said like this reinforced everything we've done together, and I just like I know I'm in such great financial shape. And again, I'm sounds like I'm like this like a made up testimony. Like I said, like it just reinforced everything we've done together, and it made me feel more confident because again, all the ideas, none of that would be a surprise, and it's not to her. We built the plan around that, but it's nice reinforcement. And a bunch of clients said similar things that it reinforced what we're doing together and just made them more confident in their financial plan, even though it's just reading the book. But that reinforcement mechanism for clients, I found again that wasn't necessarily what I was driving for, but it's appreciated, and it definitely that was huge. I mean, to have your clients even more dug in and feeling confident in themselves, the most important piece in their financial plan, but in part because of the advice we give is awesome.
I also imagine it makes them a great person who would want to introduce you or refer you to somebody else. And the book is an easy way to do that because now they're like, yeah, we got great results. He really knows what he's talking about. I just read this book. Oh, wait, give it to a neighbor, right? Like give it to a
Yeah, it's
colleague.
an easy low pressure way of, hey, read a chapter to get what he's all about, and and see how it feels. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That happened with the first book as well.
I love that. So when people are reading this book and they're getting really excited about these ideas, they don't already know you. They're not already a former client or current client. What are you hoping they do next? Like, is there bonus content they're opting into? Is it that they go to your website? Is there a clear next step for how they could engage with you, learn more about what you do for them?
Yeah, so it's a great question. If somebody reads the book and they're like, you know what, a lot of this is interesting. I think I need help, and I think this is the team to speak with. Then yes, they would schedule what we call as a right fit call. It's a 15-20 minute introductory call to learn more about their financial goals, priorities, what they're looking for, and just talk one on one. That's on our website. I'm sure we include it at the end of the book. So that's like the more immediate action item, right? We have a lot of content on our website. I'm going to continue writing blogs and newsletters and updates because I enjoy it, and so that's probably the softer way. If somebody's not ready yet, right, to have that initial conversation of, hey, I want to stay engaged. They can join my newsletter and continue getting what we send out. Obviously, yes, I do think setting up that initial call, is helpful. It's just like, hey, is this the time? Does it make sense? I always say that those 15-minute calls, I spend just as many of those guiding potential clients in a different direction, right? Because I don't think they're the best fit for us. Maybe, somebody yesterday, they go back and forth to Australia. They have money there. They need cross-border planning. We don't specialize in cross-border planning. I made an introduction. So, we really, when I say we want to work with the right fit, I really mean it. And I try to use all of these calls to guide clients in the right direction. Sometimes that's with us. And a lot of times it is because if you're reaching out, right, you're kind of self-qualifying that a lot of what I talk about resonates. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's too early in the game where I say, hey, you might not need, everything that we do, right? It might be expensive for the situation that you're in, right? You're 24 and have student loans, and steps 1, 2, and 3 is going to be pay off the student loans, right? So that first call is a great first step because it really is, it's kind of hands off, answering questions, pointing people in the right direction. But I think that is the next step, after the plan, for anybody that the information resonates to.
I think what's great about this is that you've got the Rolodex, you've got the referral network so that if they're not the perfect fit, you know how to guide them to some other people. They're not going to just be left on their
Yeah,
own.
as best we can, we really do try to
Yeah,
do that.
that's wonderful. You and I were working together around a launch plan, and the focus was to get 50 or more written reviews on Amazon and to engage with your network to start to let them know what you were about, to do a
Yeah.
private session. You've done all of this build up, and I want to say congratulations because you far exceeded. You got 62 and more coming in. I know written reviews, and every single person that went to your Amazon book page left a written review that went there. They didn't just leave the 5 stars, but they left stars, all of them 5 actually, and a written review. And some of them wrote paragraphs and paragraphs. This isn't like,
Yeah, we have some great clients and even
deep,
newsletter subscribers that have been reading kind of my
so great.
earlier stuff. So thank you, but really, thanks to my clients first and foremost because they're a big part of that and spreading the word to friends and family. And it's really you don't write the book for that, but it's really cool after all that hard work to look at the Amazon page and see some of the feedback.
Well, and I want to say that it's important because prospective buyers for your book, people who are thinking about buying your book, are comparing against multiple books in your area, and you do have a unique perspective, and that does come across. I'm so glad we got to go a little bit in depth at the beginning of the interview. But I want people to know that, and the way they will know that is from people writing reviews that really articulate that difference. So,
Yeah.
if there was a way you would think of like a helpful review would mention blank, like what would be in your mind like a helpful review in the sense that it would help explain to another prospective reader what this book is about or who it's for, like what's the kind of context you're hoping people will share if they choose to share it either as a review or as they tell a colleague about it.
Yeah. Really whatever is genuine. I think a lot of the feedback is that the book is it's not super basic, but it's also not full of jargon, right? Like real client stories puts you in the seat of, hey, this is you, this is the type of stuff you're thinking about. It just, a lot of people comment that it resonated, kind of motivated them to get started, start thinking about this. And it wasn't too high of a barrier in. And I think that's really important because at the end of the day, it's a financial planning book. Like, if you start reading it, it's like, you know what, I don't have the head for this right now. You're going to put it down and never look at it again. So the fact that people really found an easy way in to keep them going, that was really important to us.
Yeah, if it's like a microeconomics book, it's gonna really like make my brain hurt.
This is what you're reading when you're not working and doing everything else you're doing.
Yeah.
It has to be a little bit of a lightness, an easy way of thinking about it, and I do think the book has that, throughout.
That's great. And I know you've got a thriving content. You do a lot of content in all kinds of forms. How is the book sort of woven into that content plan over the next 6 to 12 months? How do you keep the book alive? Because I think leading up to the book launch, there's always a lot of focus, as the author. But a year in, there's other things pulling your attention. So how is this going to be part of sort of ongoing marketing?
Yeah, I think everything we do just complements the other. It's a pie, and they're all together. So I do webinars twice a month, sometimes a little bit more. Like I'll do one off, but I generally do 2 webinars a month about financial planning and getting started. And tax planning is a big part of it. And the book just it supports it. We're starting a podcast, and the book is. So I don't view the book as I'm really not. Hey, this is going to bring in a new client every week. I don't think about anything we do. I say, if we can put out a lot of great educational content, right, get people motivated to start thinking about their finances, and we're doing it in 7 different ways, and it's the same type of information, right? We're not, one medium is not, you should do this, and the other medium's that, no, do the opposite, right? It's all the same ideas, the same principles, and people, respond and react, look at things differently. Some people are never going to touch the book, but the podcast is going to be the thing. Other people might listen to 5 minutes of the podcast, hear that I have a book because we talk about it, and then be like, you know what, I'd rather just read the book or listen to the audio version. So I think it complements everything else we do, and it gives people the options of how they want to learn about us.
I love that because it's not the second and separate thing.
Exactly.
It is part of the overall message, and it's all supporting each other. I think that's a really smart thing as a business owner, and I kind of want to shout that out to anyone who's thinking about writing a book, to write it with that kind of integration in mind, because then you will naturally just keep talking about the book. It'll be part of, you'll make sure new clients are talking about the book and thinking about it as a way to prep them and all that. So As we wrap up here, how can people find you, follow your work? Is there a particular resource you want to point them to besides the book?
Yeah, I mean, our website is a great starting point, Drucker Wealth, because you can join our newsletter from there. Podcast is not live yet. We're working on that next big project. We have to go a little bit one at a time. That'll be there. So I think going to the website is a great, first step. I wrote the website as if, I was going on it, right? So like our fees are on our website. Why? Because I hate when professionals say, hey, I'm trying to save you time and money. And then you go to the website, call us for a fee, for a quote. Already you're not saving me time because I have to call you to find out your fees. So, we try to make the website where people that want to do a deep dive and know everything about us before they set up a call, which quite frankly is how I'm wired. I would not set up a call without knowing what the fee range, is going to be, the services, the expectations, all of it. So Drucker, www.druckerwealth.com is a good starting point, and you can go as deep or not look at anything and just sign up for the newsletter, and that'll be, a good starting point as well.
This is fantastic. Well, congratulations again on the launch of your book. Everyone, I'm going to put all the links in the show notes at bizbookpubhub.com so you can check out how to contact him on LinkedIn, his website, as you mentioned. I'll also put his books there so you can check them all out. And thank you again, Gideon. I'm so glad we got to talk about your book.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. This was fun.